The truth about Benghazi is slowly emerging, and it's deadly for Hillary and very bad for Obama. Over the weekend, Fox News broadcast a magnificent interview by Bret Baier with three annex security guards who are on the ground in combat in Benghazi, who told the story of what actually happened during the 13 hours from the time the terrorists started the raid to the time the relief column pulled out the Americans who remained alive. This interview is based on a book by Mitchell Zuckoff, Z-U-C-K-O-F-F, who wrote a book called 13 Hours, What Really Happened in Benghazi. And the book comes out today. I've ordered my copy, and I look forward to getting it, and you should get yours. What the interview with the three security guards that broadcast over the weekend on Fox showed very clearly that they were held back from intervening to save the life of Ambassador Stevens. There was the CIA compound, or the annex, where these soldiers were, that was doing CIA operations, largely relating to disarming the militants or doing something we don't know with with their weapons. And 1 mile away, there was the embassy itself, the consulate. When the raid started, when the terrorists started to attack the consulate, they immediately called the annex for help because they had only very limited security presence there, and most of their security was from a Islamist group called the 13th of March Martyrs, and I think it was March, and they turned out to be insurgents themselves. They obviously didn't fight to protect Stevens, and many of them just went over and joined the other side when the raid started. So the Stevens and his people were frantic for the annex to send troops over to the compound to protect them. And these three guys, along with two others, suited up and got ready for combat, and 5 minutes after the call came in, said, "Thumbs up, we're ready to go in." And at that point, their CIA officer, who was in charge of them, they were contractors through Blackwater who were hired to protect the compound, but they were former American soldiers, Marines, Rangers, Special Forces, very good guys. And the CIA director, whose name is identified only as Bob, said, "Stand down, do not go, you're not authorized to go there." And for half an hour, they pestered Bob with requests to please let them go, that they were desperately needed. And Bob kept refusing. Allegedly, what he was doing was trying to organize a Libyan government response to the events at the annex, and instead was just holding our forces back. And eventually, after half an hour, the five of them, on their own initiative, without even asking Bob, walked out the door and went over to the embassy compound. They all said that they believed, the three survivors, that had they arrived half an hour earlier, Chris Stevens would be alive. But that's only the beginning of the story. They then retreated to the annex when they saw that the consulate was on fire and Stevens couldn't possibly be alive, and took up positions on the roof of the annex, where they were subject to 3 attacks by the insurgents and the Islamists of increasing strength and increasingly sophisticated equipment. They beat back the first 2, although they were armed only with guns and machine guns. But when the Islamists deployed mortars and started raining down mortar shells on the roof, they couldn't hold it. 2 of them were killed, 1 severely wounded, and the 3 that were left alive withdrew. It wasn't at some point, by the way, 2 other men came in and joined the Americans on the roof, total of 7. It wasn't until 13 hours after the attack began that a convoy of 50 Americans and a whole convoy of American military equipment arrived and chased the Islamists away. But it is clear that there was no air support, and there was no prompt reinforcement, and there was an effort initially to tell the guys on the scene to stand down and not go and participate in saving the life of Ambassador Stevens. Now, I think that in his book, Zukov will probably go further and explain why there was no air support and why there was no extensive military relief. And I look forward to reading that. But these facts as they are damning. Why was the Obama administration so loath to intervene? Why were they so slow in supporting our troops? I think the answer is that with the election 2 months away, they didn't want to make a big deal out of Benghazi. They didn't want there to be seen as a firefight and reinforcements and airstrikes and everything, because they were worried that that would give people the impression that terrorism was back, that al-Qaeda still had a striking capability, and that the killing of bin Laden by U.S. troops was not in any way enough to eliminate the al-Qaeda threat. And then indeed, once the episode became known and it became clear that 4 Americans, including the ambassador, were dead, 2 of them on the rooftop and 2 of them in the compound, Obama and Hillary put out the fiction that this was related to a video, which is also obviously debunked by these 3 guys. They said they didn't even know about the video till they arrived back in Germany after it was all over. So it's very clear that this was a policy of under-responding, obfuscation, and distortion from the very beginning. Now, that series aired on Fox News 3 nights this past weekend. I'm sure millions of people saw it, but many didn't. This same ground, I think, will be part of Trey Gowdy's hearing that's coming up on Benghazi. But don't underestimate the impact of this coming out and the American people learning about what happened. It was absolutely ludicrous to see these soldiers, these brave men, talk about holding back an attack with rifles against Islamists who are better armed. We're supposed to be the American forces. We're supposed to be the ones that have the better army and the better equipment. And it was incredible. They even referred to it as holding the Alamo. Thanks a lot.